She trusted him enough to fly halfway across the world, but 10 hours later everything changed. What dark secret was Ryan hiding? One so twisted it would destroy her life in paradise. Tonight, you'll see how love can turn into a nightmare, and how the truth can be more dangerous. Emily Carter stared at the glowing boarding pass on her phone as if it might disappear. Honolulu. The word felt unreal, too warm and bright for the quiet life she had lived for years. Airports had always made her anxious, but today her hands were steady. She told herself that meant something. It meant growth. It meant trust. Ryan Walker stood a few steps ahead, confident, relaxed, already part of the world beyond security. He had insisted on booking everything himself, saying he wanted this trip to be perfect. Emily had smiled when he said it, even though the speed of it all still made her chest tighten sometimes. 3 months together, 3 intense months, and now Hawaii. She remembered the way they met, how Ryan seemed to notice things others never had. He listened, he remembered small details. After years of disappointment, that attention felt like oxygen. When he suggested the trip, she hesitated only long enough for him to take her hands and say, "You deserve something good." She wanted to believe him. On the plane, Emily watched clouds drift past the window like slow, moving secrets. Ryan sat beside her, his arm resting lightly against hers. He talked about the ocean, about starting fresh, about how some people were meant to find each other later in life. She nodded, letting his words wrap around her like a promise. Still, there were moments, brief ones. His phone buzzed often, always face down. When she asked casually who kept texting, he laughed and said, "Work stuff. I'll deal with it later." The answer was smooth, practiced. Emily ignored the small knot forming in her stomach. Hawaii greeted them with heat and color and noise. Palm trees swayed, and the air smelled like salt and flowers. Emily felt foolish for her earlier doubts. Paradise had a way of softening everything. Ryan hailed a cab, his hand firm on the small of her back, guiding her forward. At the hotel, the lobby gleamed with polished stone and quiet luxury. As they waited to check in, Ryan stepped aside to take a call. Emily watched his reflection in the glass wall. His shoulders stiffened, his jaw tightened. The smile she knew vanished as if it had never existed. When he returned, he was already smiling again. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said quickly, "nothing important." In the elevator, silence stretched between them. Ryan's phone vibrated once more. This time, Emily saw the screen light up before he turned it away. She hadn't meant to look, but her eyes caught the words instantly. A single message, no preview text. Just a contact name saved in stark capital letters. "Do not answer." Ryan slipped the phone into his pocket and reached for her hand. Emily let him hold it, even as a chill crept beneath her skin. The elevator doors opened to their floor, and she stepped out beside him, unaware that the trip she believed in had already begun to change. The hotel room looked like something pulled from a travel magazine. White curtains breathing with the ocean air, sunlight spilling across polished floors, the distant sound of waves folding into themselves. Emily stood near the window, barefoot, watching the horizon stretch endlessly blue. This was supposed to be happiness. She repeated that thought like a quiet prayer. Ryan dropped their bags and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "See," he said softly, "worth it." She nodded, even as her body stiffened for a fraction of a second before she relaxed into him. She didn't miss that moment, and neither did he. Ryan pulled away almost immediately, his tone light but his eyes sharp. "You okay?" "Just tired," Emily said. It wasn't a lie. Travel exhaustion was a convenient excuse for many things. They went out that afternoon, walking along crowded streets lined with open shops and music spilling from doorways. Ryan walked slightly ahead of her, setting the pace. When she slowed to look at something, a necklace, a painting, he glanced back with faint irritation. "Don't wander off," he said, smiling, but there was something firm underneath the words. At dinner, Ryan ordered for both of them. He chose her meal without asking, waved off the waiter before Emily could speak. "She'll love it," he said confidently. Emily smiled out of habit, though she barely tasted the food. Ryan talked about how nice it was to be away from everyone, how people always tried to interfere when things were good. Just us, he said, lifting his glass. That's all we need. Later, back in the room, Emily reached for her phone to message her sister. Ryan noticed instantly. Can it wait? He asked. I want tonight to be about us. She hesitated, then set the phone down, of course. Ryan kissed her forehead, but the moment lingered strangely, like a test she had just passed. When she stepped into the bathroom to shower, she locked the door without thinking. The sound of water filled the space, but her thoughts were louder. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, Ryan was standing on the balcony with his phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, sharp, stripped of warmth. I told you not to call, he whispered, not now. Emily froze just inside the doorway. She hadn't meant to listen, but she couldn't move. No, she doesn't know. Ryan continued. And she won't if you stop. There was a pause. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident even from a distance. Don't do this, he said. You're overreacting. Emily stepped back quietly as he ended the call. Her heart pounded, the rhythm uneven. She sat on the edge of the bed, trying to steady her breathing. Ryan turned, his expression instantly softening when he saw her. Everything okay? He asked again, the same question, the same tone. Who was that? Emily asked, surprised by how calm her voice sounded. Old problem. He said, shrugging, nothing worth ruining our first night. He crossed the room, brushing his fingers along her arm. Emily forced a smile, but the unease stayed with her, heavy and insistent. As Ryan switched off the lights, she lay awake beside him, listening to the ocean outside and wondering why paradise suddenly felt like the wrong place to be. Morning light crept through the curtains, thin and pale, and Emily woke with the ocean still echoing in her ears. Ryan slept on his back, one arm flung across the pillow between them, phone face down on the nightstand. She watched him for a moment, studying the calm of his breathing, and wondered how someone could look so peaceful after sounding so angry. She dressed quietly and slipped into the hallway, telling herself she only needed coffee. The lobby smelled of citrus and polished wood, cool against the rising heat outside. Guests moved through with beach bags and laughter, and Emily felt strangely invisible among them. She was waiting in line when she felt it, a stare that pressed against her skin. A woman stood near the front desk, mid-30s, hair pulled back too tightly, eyes fixed on Emily with open alarm. When Ryan's name echoed from the desk clerk, the woman's face drained of color. Are you with him? The woman asked, stepping closer. Her voice shook. Emily hesitated. Yes, why? The woman swallowed, glancing around as if measuring exits. Be careful. She whispered, he isn't. She stopped herself, eyes flicking toward the elevators. Emily opened her mouth to ask more, but the woman backed away, knocking a key card from her hand. It skidded across the floor and came to rest at Emily's feet. By the time Emily looked up, the woman had disappeared into the crowd. Ryan appeared beside her, too suddenly. Everything okay? He asked, smiling at the clerk. Emily handed over the fallen card. Someone dropped this. Ryan's smile faltered for half a second before returning. People are careless, he said. You ready? Back in the elevator, Emily turned the key card over in her palm. The name printed on it caught her breath. Ryan Walker, room number stamped below, not their room. Did you know her? Emily asked lightly. Ryan shrugged. No idea. The elevator chimed. He guided her out, hand firm, questions unfinished. In the room, Emily set the card on the dresser, her mind racing. The woman's fear felt familiar, like an echo from somewhere she couldn't place. Ryan noticed the card and picked it up. Why do you have this? She dropped it. Emily said. She seemed scared. Ryan's jaw tightened. You imagine things when you're anxious. He slipped the card into his wallet and kissed her forehead, ending the conversation. She sat on the bed afterward. replaying the woman's warning until it blurred with memory. Emily told herself fear traveled easily between strangers, that worry could be contagious. Yet the lobby eyes had not been confused. They had been precise, almost pleading. Outside, the corridor hummed with footsteps and distant laughter, life moving on without her consent. She thought of the message she'd seen on Ryan's phone, the capital letters, the command. Patterns formed despite her efforts to scatter them. Trust, she realized, was not a single choice but 1,000 small permissions, each granted quietly. And tonight, she felt one of them had been taken back without asking. The air felt heavier, pressing her ribs inward, as if the island itself was listening, waiting for her next step, her next question, her next mistake. She wished for sleep, for quiet, for morning clarity and honest answers soon. Later, alone on the balcony, Emily stared at the door and listened to the ocean swallow the sound of her thoughts. That night, as Ryan slept, Emily searched his wallet for the card. It wasn't there. In its place was an old hotel receipt from this very building, dated 2 years earlier. 10 hours after they landed, Emily realized she had stopped pretending everything was fine. The feeling settled quietly, without panic, like a decision her body made before her mind caught up. Ryan was in the bathroom, the shower running steadily, steam creeping beneath the door. The sound should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a countdown. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, staring at Ryan's laptop resting on the desk. He had never told her the password, but that morning he'd typed it in front of her without thinking. A date, not hers, not anything she recognized. Her hands shook as she stood, every movement loud in the silence between the water and her heartbeat. She opened the laptop. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen glowed to life. At first, it looked ordinary, email, documents, a neatness that felt rehearsed. Emily told herself she was being unfair, that curiosity was not evidence. But then she saw a folder buried deep in the drive, deliberately unnamed. Her finger hovered, then clicked. The files inside were old, news articles saved as PDF, screenshots of headlines. She read slowly, her breath growing shallow. A missing woman, Lena Brooks, 28 years old, last seen leaving a bar with a man matching Ryan's description, the case unsolved, the suspect never charged. Emily's chest tightened as she scrolled. There were notes too, personal ones, typed, organized, disturbingly calm. Timelines, observations, mistakes corrected in hindsight. This was not the record of an innocent man wronged by circumstance. It was the archive of someone who studied his own past. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark screen edges, pale and unfamiliar. She closed the folder quickly as footsteps approached. The laptop barely shut before Ryan stepped out. Towel around his waist, hair damp, eyes immediately scanning the room. "Hey," he said. "What are you doing?" "Nothing." Emily replied too fast, just waiting. Ryan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He crossed the room and picked up the laptop, checking it with casual precision. "We should go out," he said. "Get some air." Emily nodded. She followed him outside, her legs moving automatically. The hallway felt longer than before, the doors on either side identical, anonymous. She wondered how many stories hid behind them, how many secrets traveled through this place unnoticed. They walked toward the beach, but Emily barely registered the sun or the sound of the waves. Her thoughts replayed the headlines, the dates aligning too neatly. She studied Ryan's profile as he talked, his voice steady, practiced. This was a man who knew how to perform calm. "Emily," he said suddenly, stopping, "you're quiet." "I'm just thinking," she answered. "About what?" She met his gaze, searching for something human beneath the surface. "About trust." Ryan laughed softly. "That's a strange topic for a vacation." "Is it?" she asked. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Annoyance, calculation, then it was gone. He took her hand, squeezing gently. "You trust me, right?" Emily felt the weight of the question. Trust was no longer abstract. It was dangerous. It was measurable. "I want to," she said. That night, back in the room, Ryan fell asleep quickly. Emily lay awake, counting his breaths, listening for change. Slowly, carefully, she slid out of bed and returned to the desk. This time, she didn't hesitate. She reopened the laptop and copied everything onto her phone. As she finished, her phone vibrated once. A notification appeared on the screen. Unknown sender. One short message. "He's done this before." The message lingered on Emily's screen long after the glow dimmed. "He's done this before." The words felt heavier than the phone in her hand, heavier than the room, heavier than the island air pressing through the balcony doors. She sat on the edge of the bed, listening to Ryan's steady breathing, and wondered how many nights like this he had slept through, untouched by what he left behind. Emily slipped into the bathroom and locked the door, lowering herself onto the cool tile. She replayed the files she'd copied, reading names and dates until they began to blur. Lena Brooks. The lobby woman's face returned to her with sudden clarity, the fear sharpened by recognition. This was the pattern: charm, isolation, silence. She wasn't special, she was next. A memory surfaced from her childhood, her mother warning her about storms that arrived without sound. The most dangerous ones, she'd said, were the calmest. Emily pressed her fingers to her temples and breathed through the rising panic. She needed facts. Fear alone would not save her. By morning, she decided she would leave. She told herself that repeatedly, building resolve like a fragile wall. But when she checked her phone, the signal flickered, then vanished. No service. She moved closer to the window, then to the balcony, searching for bars that refused to appear. Behind the bathroom door, the bedroom creaked softly. Emily froze. The shower hadn't turned on. Ryan hadn't stirred before. She tucked the phone into her pocket and unlocked the door, stepping out carefully. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, awake, his phone in his hand. The room felt smaller with him watching. "You didn't sleep," he said. "I was thirsty." Emily replied. He studied her, eyes lingering too long. "You seem distracted." She forced a small smile. "It's been a lot." Ryan stood and crossed the room, closing the balcony door with deliberate care. "I don't like secrets," he said. "They ruin things." Emily's pulse hammered. "I agree." He reached for her phone casually as if it were nothing. "Let me see." She stepped back. "Why?" Ryan's expression hardened. "Because you're acting strange." Silence stretched between them, thick and charged. Emily felt the truth pressing against her teeth, desperate to escape. "Who is Lena Brooks?" she asked. The name landed between them like glass. Ryan's jaw tightened. He exhaled slowly, as if calming himself. "You shouldn't be digging into things you don't understand." "I understand enough." Emily said. She disappeared. "You were the last person seen with her." Ryan's voice dropped. "Careful." "I met a woman in the lobby," Emily continued, her words shaking but steady. "She was scared of you." "That woman is unstable," Ryan snapped. "She's obsessed." "And the message I got?" Emily asked. "Is that obsession too?" Ryan stepped closer. "Give me the phone." Emily clutched it to her chest. "You're lying to me." For a brief moment, the mask slipped. His eyes darkened, something cold surfacing beneath the charm. Then he smiled, slow and measured. "You're tired," he said gently. "This trip is overwhelming you." He reached out, brushing her hair back with practiced tenderness. Emily felt the manipulation settle around her like a net. She realized then that leaving would not be simple, not clean. The past didn't stay buried because men like Ryan made sure of that. Somewhere beyond the walls, waves kept breaking, patient and relentless, as if counting time she no longer controlled. She understood now that survival would require silence, timing, and a careful performance of trust. Any wrong move could harden his tone forever. She nodded, pretending calm, hiding the truth behind her eyes. memorizing exits, distances, and his breathing, counting seconds, planning quietly. Her heart sank completely then. As he turned away, Emily noticed her purse on the dresser, unzipped, empty. Her passport was gone. Emily stared at the empty purse, her thoughts scattering like startled birds. Passport gone, wallet gone. Even the folded emergency cash she always carried had vanished. She looked up slowly, forcing her face into stillness. Panic would betray her faster than words. Ryan stood near the door, keys in his hand, watching her with an unreadable expression that felt heavier than anger. "You're upset," he said calmly. "I told you this trip would be intense." "My passport," Emily replied. "It's missing." Ryan sighed as if disappointed. "I moved it for safekeeping." "Safekeeping from who?" she asked. "From you," he said without hesitation. The honesty in his answer stunned her more than any lie. He crossed the room and gently turned the lock on the door. The sound was soft, almost polite, but it echoed inside Emily's chest. Click. Final. Ryan leaned back against the door, arms folded, posture relaxed, as though this were a conversation he'd rehearsed many times before. "You're not thinking clearly," he said. "People panic when they dig into things they shouldn't." Emily swallowed. "You trapped me." Ryan shook his head. "No, I'm protecting us." She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "By taking away my passport. You were planning to leave," he said. I could see it. The accuracy of his words made her blood run cold. Emily realized then that he had been watching her longer than she had ever noticed. Every pause, every glance, every breath weighed and measured. She took a step back, putting distance between them. "You don't get to decide that," she said. Ryan's voice softened. "I do, actually." He moved closer, lowering his tone as if sharing a secret. "Lena tried to leave too." Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. "What did you do to her?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "She ruined everything." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you need." Emily's mind raced, grasping for control. She remembered the recording on her phone, the files saved, the message warning her too late. She wondered who had sent it, and whether they were already regretting their silence. Ryan reached out and took her wrists, not rough, not gentle, just firm enough to remind her of his strength. "You don't have to be afraid," he said, "as long as you cooperate." She pulled free, adrenaline giving her courage. "You can't keep me here forever." Ryan smiled faintly. "I don't need forever." He turned and checked the deadbolt again, then the chain, methodical. Emily scanned the room, the balcony, the windows, the bathroom. Every exit felt suddenly theoretical, ideas instead of options. Ryan followed her gaze. "The balcony doors are alarmed," he said. "Don't bother." Emily sat slowly on the edge of the bed, steadying her breathing. She needed him calm. She needed him careless. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. Ryan studied her, considering. "I want you to stop asking questions." "And if I don't, then things get complicated." Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken threats. Ryan finally stepped away, heading toward the bathroom. "Rest," he said. "We'll talk later." The bathroom door closed. Emily exhaled shakily, her legs weak beneath her. She stood and moved to the desk, fingers trembling as she opened her phone. No signal, no time. She glanced at the door, then at the laptop still hidden in her bag. As she slipped it out, her phone vibrated once. Signal returned, weak but real. A new message appeared, unsent number. "He's escalating. Don't confront him again. Get proof. Get out." Emily's breath caught as she heard the bathroom lock click from the inside. Ryan was taking his time, and she realized with chilling clarity that the next move would decide everything. Emily's hands shook as she clutched the phone, the recording light glowing faintly in the dim hotel room. Ryan had stepped out of the bathroom, unaware that she had already captured his words. Every breath she took felt like a countdown, every movement a potential misstep. The room felt smaller now, walls pressing in, the ocean's distant roar seeming distant and meaningless against the tension building inside. Ryan stood at the edge of the bed, towel still loosely tied. eyes flicking toward her as if sensing the shift in the air. "You've been quiet again," he said, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Thinking too much." Emily met his gaze, steady despite the tremor inside her. "About trust," she said. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Trust is overrated." His tone was light, almost teasing, but his eyes darkened for a fraction of a second before he masked it. "You're letting your imagination run wild." Imagination? Emily's voice rose, but carefully, measured. "Ryan, I've seen the emails, the files, Lena Brooks, the lobby woman. You've manipulated every part of this trip, every part of me." She let the words land, heavy and precise. "Do you think I don't notice?" Ryan's eyes narrowed. "You've been digging where you shouldn't. That woman in the lobby, crazy, obsessive, she sees threats where none exist. I saw fear." Emily shot back, "Not obsession, fear of you. I'm starting to see why." Ryan stepped closer, deliberately casual, but every inch of space he closed carried a weight of warning. "Emily, you need to calm down," he said. "We're here to enjoy ourselves. Stop spinning stories." "I'm not spinning stories," Emily said, the phone hidden behind her back. "I know what you are. I know what you did, and I'm not letting it happen again." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You don't know anything," he said coldly. His calm had vanished, replaced by a sharpness that made Emily's pulse spike. "You think you're clever recording me, trying to trap me. I'm recording the truth," she said. "You want to manipulate me, gaslight me, lock me in, control me. Well, I'm done pretending." For a moment, the room was silent except for the distant hum of the air conditioner and the ocean waves beyond the balcony. Ryan's gaze lingered on her, calculating. Then he smirked, slow, deliberate. "You think this proves something, a few words, a few files, you're in way over your head." Emily swallowed, heart racing, but she held the phone higher, steadying her hand. "I'm done being afraid," she said. "Do you understand? I won't let you frighten me into silence. I will show everyone. Everyone will know." Ryan's smirk faltered, replaced by something colder. "You have no idea what's coming," he whispered. "You can't even imagine. And if you push too hard." He didn't finish the sentence. The threat hung between them like smoke, thick and suffocating. Emily's chest tightened. She could feel the danger, tangible, as if the walls themselves had shifted. She stepped back toward the desk, toward the laptop, toward the evidence she had hidden there. The air in the room vibrated with tension, every shadow sharp, every creak of the floor magnified. Ryan turned away, pacing slowly near the balcony. "You think you're clever, Emily, but clever doesn't mean safe." He stopped and looked over his shoulder, eyes narrowing. One wrong move and everything changes. Emily's pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to speak, to argue further, but she sensed the knife edge they were balancing on. Any misstep could provoke the darkness she glimpsed in him. She crouched slightly, keeping her phone hidden, recording every word, every movement, memorizing every detail. Finally, Ryan moved to the bed, letting out a slow, deliberate sigh. "I'm done talking," he said, lying back and pretending relaxation. "Rest, enjoy the trip, or at least pretend you can." Emily watched him, every nerve alert. She knew the danger hadn't passed. She also knew she had captured the proof she needed. But as she glanced at the ocean, faintly glowing in the early evening light, a chill ran down her spine. Ryan wasn't done. He never would be, not until he knew every secret she held, every fear she carried, every plan she might try to act upon. Her phone vibrated with a new message, unknown number, short, urgent, almost frantic. "He knows. Be careful. This is it." Emily's fingers tightened around the device. Her stomach sank. She realized the next few hours would decide everything: survival, justice, and the fragile line between truth and danger. The hotel room felt smaller than it had ever been, air thick and heavy, charged with something Emily could not name. She sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, recording still running, every nerve alert, every sense straining. Ryan lay nearby, pretending to read, pretending calm, but the quiet was deceptive, like the pause before a storm breaks. Emily watched him, memorizing the angles of his movements, the way his shoulders flexed, the almost imperceptible tension in his jaw. She knew that behind the casual smile, the playful gestures, there was something much darker, a deliberate, controlled force she could not fully predict. Every instinct screamed at her, warning her that the next moments would decide everything. She thought of Lena Brooks, the files, the message that had arrived hours earlier. "He's done this before." That phrase had burrowed deep into her mind, a steady drumbeat she could not ignore. It wasn't just fear she felt, it was the realization that she had stepped into a pattern, one that Ryan knew perfectly, one that he controlled. The room grew quiet, the only sound the distant rush of the ocean and the occasional hum of the air conditioning. Emily moved slightly, careful not to alert him. She needed the proof. She needed the words he could not deny. Slowly, she crept toward the desk, laptop bag under her arm, the glow of the screen reflecting faintly on her face. Ryan's head lifted slightly, but he made no move to stop her. He was watching, calculating, enjoying the subtle tension. Emily's pulse accelerated. She slid the laptop from the bag, opened it, and began transferring the files to her phone. Her hands trembled, but her fingers moved with precision. Every second felt like eternity. Then the sound of movement, soft, deliberate, came from behind. Ryan had stood, his eyes narrowing. He walked toward her, each step measured, almost theatrical. Emily froze, heart hammering. She continued working, pretending focus, hoping he would underestimate her. "You're persistent," Ryan said quietly. "I like that about you. Or maybe I just admire your bravery, until it becomes foolish." His voice was calm, yet every word carried weight, authority, threat. Emily didn't respond. She kept her fingers moving, knowing one wrong sound could shift everything. Her mouth was dry, throat tight. She could feel the pressure building, the tension winding tighter, a silent crescendo in the room. Ryan circled her slowly, stopping behind the chair, leaning close. She could feel his presence like heat, like gravity. "Do you really think you can outsmart me?" he whispered. Emily's chest tightened, but she didn't stop. She couldn't, not now. The transfer completed. She slipped the phone into her pocket, her hands shaking violently. Ryan's eyes narrowed, a flash of something unreadable in them. And then, almost imperceptibly, he stepped back. For a brief moment, the room seemed to exhale, as though the air itself recognized the tension had reached its peak. Emily sank into the chair, trying to steady her breathing. She had survived, she had proof, but the sense of relief was fleeting. The danger had not ended. Ryan moved to the balcony, standing with his back to her. He lit a cigarette, smoke curling in the warm night air. Emily watched him, careful not to show any sign of weakness. The silence stretched, heavy and deliberate. Emily realized this silence was more dangerous than any confrontation. It was a waiting game, a psychological war, and Ryan was patient, too patient. From her pocket, her phone vibrated once. Another message from the unknown number. "He's planning his next move, don't wait." Emily's stomach turned. She understood now that nothing could be taken for granted. Every step, every breath, every choice would have to be measured. The fatal silence hung between them, unbroken, echoing, warning her that the next hours would not be ordinary. They would decide who survived and who did not. Detective Mark Holloway stepped into the small, dimly lit office, files stacked on the desk in neat piles, each one representing a story someone had tried to bury. He ran a hand through his hair and let his gaze linger on the laptop screen displaying Emily's recordings. The voice on the file was calm, precise, trembling only in moments of fear. Truth captured before it could be erased. Emily had reached out anonymously. She couldn't trust anyone else, not yet. The evidence she had gathered from Ryan's laptop, the emails, the old articles about Lena Brooks, the lobby woman's account, it all pointed to a pattern of manipulation, control, and danger. Holloway leaned back in his chair, letting the weight of it settle. These were the kinds of cases that refused to die quietly. He traced the timeline carefully. Ryan's previous movements, the hotel stays, the connections to missing or endangered women, every anomaly, every suppressed report, every overlooked statement now fit together like pieces of a dark puzzle. Lena's case had reopened quietly under a new investigation, but the files Emily had provided were the most damning. Meticulous records, organized in a way only someone obsessed or methodical could manage. Holloway picked up the phone. "Mark here. We need to verify these hotel records. Cross. Reference with Ryan Walker's reservations, any unusual charges, guests, anything." He paused, listening. "Yes. And check for deleted footage. Don't leave anything to chance." Meanwhile, Emily sat in the corner of her apartment, trying to feel relief, trying to let the adrenaline ebb. But the memory of Ryan's gaze, of the locked hotel room, of the bathroom door clicked shut with no one else inside, stayed vivid. She couldn't ignore the fear. The evidence she had saved was alive, demanding attention, but the danger was still very real. She reread the last message she had received from the unknown sender. "He's planning his next move." "Don't wait." Holloway moved from the office to the hotel's security room. He watched hours of grainy footage, rewinding, slowing, observing Ryan's precise movements. Every interaction Emily had mentioned, the lobby encounter, the woman who dropped the key, Ryan's attention to Emily, was there, captured in the cold clarity of surveillance. Each frame added weight to the suspicion. Each pause suggested intention. He noticed the moment Ryan booked the one-way ticket out of Hawaii. The gesture was subtle, almost insignificant, yet it spoke volumes. Holloway made notes, photographs of the digital logs, timestamps, and even the fleeting expressions of Ryan on the cameras. He could feel the story assembling itself, a narrative that Ryan had thought buried, a pattern that refused to be hidden. Emily's phone vibrated again. She saw the message. "He's leaving soon. Act fast." Detective Holloway cross-referenced the hotel logs with airline manifests. Ryan's movements lined up almost flawlessly, but one thing didn't match. He had assumed Emily was unaware of the backup she had taken. Holloway realized that she had created a second layer of protection, a silent weapon that Ryan could not detect. The implication was chilling. Ryan had operated under the assumption of control, but the evidence Emily had saved created a chain he could not break. Holloway leaned back, feeling the tension rise. The moment for action was imminent. One wrong decision, and Ryan could disappear into the air, taking Emily's safety with him. He typed a message to his team, concise and urgent. "Prepare for immediate intervention. Walker's flight is confirmed. He cannot leave." Meanwhile, Emily held her phone, hands trembling, heart pounding, realizing that the proof she had risked everything to collect might be the only thing keeping her alive. Somewhere in the shadows, Ryan was still planning, still moving, still dangerous, but the evidence that refused to die had a chance to stop him. The room went silent as Holloway and his team moved into position. Every piece of data, every document, every recording from Emily was now a weapon. The countdown had begun, and Ryan, oblivious to the surveillance closing in, was making his next move. The courtroom was thick with tension, the air carrying the weight of months of investigation and months of fear. Emily sat in the witness box, her hands clasped tightly, phone and recordings safely tucked away with the prosecution. Every breath she took seemed amplified, echoing in the solemn space, her pulse keeping time with the heavy footsteps and muted whispers around her. Today, the truth would finally face the light. Detective Mark Holloway sat at the prosecutor's table, reviewing notes, eyes scanning the room for inconsistencies, for threats, for the slightest hint that Ryan Walker might try to manipulate the proceedings as he had manipulated Emily. Ryan sat in the defendant's chair, calm and composed on the surface, but his eyes darted, calculating, searching. The practiced charm was there, but the edges had begun to fray. The trial began with procedural formalities, but the room held its collective breath as the prosecution called the first witness, Emily. She stood, voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Please state your name," the attorney asked. "Emily Carter," she said. Her voice echoed slightly, stronger than she felt. "M.S. Carter." The attorney continued, "Can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" Emily swallowed and recounted the months with Ryan, how quickly he had entered her life, how deeply he had embedded himself, the subtle manipulations that had grown over time. She described the Hawaii trip, the locked doors, the messages, and the discovery of the files on his laptop. Her voice cracked only once, when she mentioned Lena Brooks and the lobby woman. The court went still, absorbing the depth of deception and danger she had faced. Emily's testimony was deliberate, measured, but every word carried emotional weight, capturing the fear, the betrayal, and the courage it had taken to survive. Next, Holloway presented the digital evidence: emails, deleted files, screenshots, hotel logs, and Emily's recorded conversations. The room was silent, except for the faint clicking of the projector and the occasional shuffle of papers. Ryan's attempts to maintain composure faltered as the pieces of his past and present lined up in front of the jury. Each file exposed patterns, each recording revealed control, manipulation, and threats. The defense tried to counter, claiming that Emily's interpretation was exaggerated, that Ryan's behavior was misunderstood, that the files represented harmless obsession or concern. But the prosecution methodically dismantled every argument, letting the evidence speak louder than words. Witnesses from Ryan's past came forward, hesitant at first, sharing stories of fear, manipulation, and silence, their testimony reinforcing Emily's account. Emily listened as the courtroom absorbed every detail, realizing that the words and files she had feared would never be enough were now the foundation of truth. The judge observed quietly, the jury leaned forward, and even Ryan's own attorney began to falter under the weight of undeniable proof. By the end of the day, the narrative had shifted entirely. The manipulations, the secrets, the psychological patterns, all laid bare. Justice had not yet been declared, but the path was clear. Emily's testimony, combined with the evidence she had risked everything to preserve, had created a story no lie could override. As the courtroom emptied for the day, Emily sat quietly, her hands still trembling. Holloway approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing," he said softly. "You made sure the truth couldn't be hidden." Emily nodded, trying to absorb the weight of those words. Outside the courtroom, the warm afternoon sun seemed sharper, brighter, almost triumphant. But she knew the trial was not over. Ryan's defense could still attempt one last maneuver, one last delay, one last claim to try and bury the truth. Her phone vibrated. Another message from the unknown source appeared, brief and urgent. "He has one more card. Be ready." Emily's chest tightened. She understood that while the trial had brought justice closer, the final confrontation, the decisive moment, was still ahead. One last step remained, and the outcome would finally be sealed. The truth had been revealed, but the story was not yet complete. Justice demanded its final act. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Emily's hands gripped the edge of the bench, knuckles white, as the words cut through the tension like a blade. Guilty on all counts. Ryan Walker's expression remained calm on the surface, but there was a subtle quiver in his jaw, a flicker of something brittle beneath the carefully constructed mask. Justice had finally arrived, yet it felt hollow in the chest where fear and relief tangled. Detective Mark Holloway gave Emily a small, reassuring nod. His eyes carried understanding, a recognition that surviving Ryan had been more than a matter of law. It had been a matter of courage, endurance, and sheer willpower. She had preserved the evidence, faced him directly, and spoken her truth despite the terror that had consumed her. Now, the system had validated it. Outside, sunlight poured over the courthouse steps. Emily drew in a deep breath, tasting the salt and heat of the day. It was freedom, technically, yet the shadows lingered. She remembered every locked door, every whispered threat, the chilling silence of the hotel room, and the files she had uncovered. Freedom was hers, but the memories were indelible. The media circled, cameras flashing, questions tumbling over each other, yet Emily moved past them with quiet determination. She didn't speak to reporters, didn't wave, didn't smile. The story was out, the truth revealed, but she had learned that some wounds could not be aired publicly without leaving raw edges exposed. Holloway walked beside her, gently guiding her toward the waiting car. "You did everything right," he said again, his tone steady, patient. "You faced the danger and you held on." Emily nodded, but her mind was elsewhere, cataloging each moment, each action she had taken to survive. She thought of Lena Brooks, of the lobby woman, of the message that had warned her in the shadows. She realized the cost of truth. It did not erase fear, nor did it bring peace automatically. Justice had been served, but the memories would not vanish. Ryan's conviction brought a sense of closure for the system, but Emily felt the quiet echo of loss, the loss of innocence, of trust, of a sense of safety she had once taken for granted. The hotel room, the balcony, the locked doors, the chilling control, those experiences had altered her, leaving marks invisible to the naked eye. At home, Emily placed the phone with the recordings and files into a drawer, carefully locked. She did not delete them, did not destroy the evidence that had saved her, but she also did not touch it daily. The proof of what Ryan had done existed, tangible and undeniable, yet she understood it would always remain a reminder of the darkness she had survived. Sitting by the window, watching the evening sun reflect on the calm waves, Emily allowed herself the smallest exhale. She was free. Ryan would no longer control, manipulate, or threaten. Justice had been achieved. Yet peace felt distant. Her phone vibrated. A single message appeared. A known number, brief and unassuming. "You survived. That alone is proof of everything." Emily smiled faintly, a soft, almost imperceptible curve of relief. She knew the world would continue, but she had faced the storm and endured. Justice had been done, but peace was a journey she would continue to navigate, quietly, carefully, day by day, carrying both the burden of what had happened and the strength she had discovered within herself. For the first time in months, she let herself lean back, closing her eyes, listening to the waves, and knowing that the night could not reach her anymore.